I'm going to read that book I've been meaning to read, because reading is, it's a good escape for me. It helps me, clear my mind, and I feel so good when I'm done reading, whatever your self-care is. And then you say to yourself, well, but first let me do the dishes. Oh, shoot, and then I should throw a load of laundry in. Oh, no, the kids need something, and I should go grocery shopping so that we have something for dinner tonight. And then when I get done with that, before I go to bed, I'll read a chapter. All right, well, you and I both know you've just set yourself up for failure. Stop making your self-care or what you want to do for yourself contingent upon what you accomplish. It's so important, and that will be the best way you can start to cultivate a self-care state of mind. Number 2, don't talk shit. And this is so important to me. You know what? Let's just make a pact together, okay? No more put-downs, not even in joking style. Just stop it in its tracks. When you find yourself on that bandwagon of shitting all over yourself for not being good enough, just stop mid-shit and say to yourself, and that's how I used to think, and I don't think like that anymore. Stop indulging the drama and the pity party and just decide that you don't do it anymore. I don't think that way anymore. Because you want to feel better about yourself, you have to start feeling better about yourself. You have to start looking for ways that you can talk better about yourself. Number 3, if you really want to change and you want to cultivate a self-care state of mind, you want that to be your default way of being, you have to be alone. Go sit by yourself. You've got to learn to be comfortable when nothing's going on. And I know lately we've all had our share of being bored out of our minds, but we also have a lot of distractions that we put in place of being alone. You've got to go and sit with no screen, no scroll, no phone call, nothing. And just sit and just be. Because you have to create space for whatever it is that you're avoiding to come out. I guarantee that if you have a shitty relationship with yourself and you constantly feel like you are the last on the list and that you're doing everything for everybody else, but you're not getting what you want, you're not in charge of your life, you're not in control of what's happening to you, a big part of that is because you have something you're not dealing with internally. It's really easy for us to look outside ourselves and say, you know what? The reason I can't do self-care, the reason I never get any time to myself, the reason I don't get to do the things I want to do is because something outside of me is preventing me from doing it. And I can tell you with no doubt in my mind, having done the self-care research, having practiced these things that I roll out to you, friends, that is just simply not true. If self-care is not your default state of mind, if you're not used to treating yourself well and taking care of yourself and being in charge of your time and doing good things for yourself, it's because there's something that you have to deal with. There's something unresolved within yourself. And maybe it's an old belief that you're not good enough or that you have to do things for other people in order for them to like you. Or maybe it's that you're just stuck in that people-pleasing rut. It's like how we use food to make ourselves feel better or to soothe us when we're having a bad day. It's the same thing with self-care. We think that other people saying nice things to us is the only way we can really feel good about ourselves. And a lot of the times that leads to a lot of sadness and unfulfilled, unrequited pain that you really have to deal with. And the only way to deal with that is you have to do the work. You have to be alone. You have to give those thoughts and those beliefs and that painful history, you have to give it space to come up so you can sort that dirty laundry and figure out what you need to do to clear it out. And the more you do that, the more you give yourself time to yourself to be alone without any distractions or any input from the outside world, whether it's a hike or whether it's just, sitting in a room quietly by yourself, or meditation, or just going for a walk, or just having time away from all of your responsibilities and obligations. Now, if you're saying to me, oh, that's impossible, Chris, I can never do that. That is an excuse. And that's why self-care is so hard for you. Number 4, one of the fastest ways for you to cultivate a self-care state of mind, to really bridge that gap from a place of confinement and imprisonment in the pain and discomfort of doing things for everyone else, to the freedom and the expansion and the creativity of doing things for yourself, is that you have to fuck perfectionistic thinking. Just fuck it all together. Because perfectionism is a trap. It's a big circle. There is no such thing as perfect. And getting rid of perfectionistic thinking, that means you have to learn self-forgiveness. You have to learn patience and practice it. And I'm talking about patience with yourself. Not necessarily with your kids or your family or the world outside. I'm talking about cultivating it within yourself, giving yourself that break, and accepting that you can have a goal, you can have these things that you're working for, and not have to get there perfectly. Because there is no right answer. No one person has any of this figured out. Learning to love yourself and repairing that past damage is a lot like going to a buffet, right? And you get to go to the buffet and there's all these things out there and you get to pick the things you like to eat. And then you eliminate all the rest. And then you take your plate to the table and you sit down and you go through and you eat and you digest all the things that you like that you just picked up. And you get to keep the things that are working, the things that you enjoy, and you get to leave the rest of the things that you don't like, the salad you thought that looked delicious, but it turned out to be soaked in dressing and now you don't want it. Okay, great. You leave it on the plate, and when you're full, when you're done, you stop. And if you get hungry for more, you go back for more. But you have to figure out your trigger phrases, things that you hear that set you off, that are going to stop you from being kind to yourself. And you have to figure out what you're going to say in your mind, in your head, when you start talking shit about yourself. You have to figure out, where does the people-pleasing start? When do I get into that phase, that cycle? You have to figure out what feels good to you and what doesn't. And then you have to go through it. And then you have to decide, how am I going to do that? What feels good? What am I going to do for self-care today? What am I going to do for me that's just for me, that's going to help me work through some of these things? It could be journaling. It could be a walk by yourself. It could be saying no to a friend even if they really need you right now. It could be turning off that TV a half an hour early so you can just go lay in bed and get some extra sleep. It doesn't have to be a monumentous occasion. You can do small, subtle things that shift yourself into cultivating that self-care state of mind. Number 5, another way to cultivate a real state of mind that is focused on taking care of yourself is you've got to start taking credit for what's going well, what's going right. If you have a negative self-image, or if you have that imposter syndrome, or if you're really working at getting out of that people-pleasing cycle, let's put all of that aside right now and let's really focus on what's going well. Especially in this pandemic, we really have to milk every little good thing we're doing. Did you shower today? Did you set your phone down for at least 15 to 20 minutes? Did you drink any water today? Did you tell yourself you're doing a good job? Did you give yourself a little bit of leeway when you made a mistake? This is what I really want you to start focusing on. It's these little things right now. You know, maybe when we get to a better place in a more normalcy state of being, we can focus on those bigger, massive, life-changing self-care experiences, like going to the hot springs or taking a trip to the beach or having a night at a fancy hotel. You know, those kinds of things. We can do that later. But right now, we're going to focus and we're going to utilize the situation to the best of our ability to cultivate that self-care state of mind through small little acts. All right, I want to run through that list real quick. 5 ways you can cultivate the self-care state of mind. Number 1, see the good in yourself. Number 2, don't talk shit. Number 3, be alone. Number 4, fuck perfectionistic thinking. And number 5, take credit for what's going well. All right, so I'm going to finish up here with 10 things that are going to happen to you when you do have that self-care state of mind. So once you've cultivated it and you've put in the effort. Number 1, when shit happens that you can't control, you don't automatically blame yourself first. So when you've really been concentrating on self-care and you really put the effort in to put yourself first, when you really are taking that time to think about, gosh, you know what could I use today to help me? What could I do that's going to help me feel better or get me out of this funk, or what's going to help me maintain that positivity that I've got going? Well, you've really got to start with, you can't automatically blame yourself. So when something happens that's out of your control, like a car wreck, or you get laid off, or you drop a jar of marinara on the kitchen floor, you have to stop blaming yourself. You have to stop immediately holding your feet to the fire and saying, oh, why did you do that? You're so dumb. I can't believe it. And even if you don't say those words out loud, you have to stop doing it in your head. And that's what happens when you come from a place of taking care of yourself and this is your mentality. You drop a jar of marinara on the floor and you're like, oh shit, I hope somebody comes and cleans that up soon. Number 2, when you have a self-care state of mind, when you're coming from that place, you really do honor yourself. You really do. You know, because if you need to slow down, you do it. You don't, hem and haw and take forever to decide like, oh, well, should I do it? No, you slow down. If you need it, you do. If you need to stop something, you stop. You need to take a nap when you're tired, you do. When you have a self-care state of mind, it's not a question. You start feeling like tired and groggy and you're like, you know what? I need a nap. I need to go lay down. You don't start checking with everybody else around you to see if that's okay. You just know that that's what you need and you go and you do it. Because you start listening to yourself first. Number 3, when you have that self-care state of mind, you start solving your own problems. So as you really get good at self-care and you make that a priority and you really implement some of these practices, you're going to find that you need less and less and less advice from the outside world. And I find in my self-care practice, that's a really good gauge. If I'm soliciting others outside of me for like, oh, what should I do? And what do you think about this? I know my self-care is in the toilet and I need to get it in check. Because when you really have a self-care state of mind, when you're really coming from that place of confidence and self-love, you are the best person to solve your own problem. You know what's going to work best for you. And I've read, places, I say it all the time, if you don't know what to do for yourself, flip a coin. And when it lands on heads and you wish it would tails, then you'll know. Because you know. And as you start to cultivate that self-care and that confidence and that self-compassion, and you really start giving yourself a break, you're going to start valuing your own advice and your own opinion. And you're going to stop looking at others for that. Number 4, when you have a self-care state of mind, you don't get your self-worth from external things. So we talked about this before. When you're really focused on loving yourself and repairing that past relationship or that people-pleasing thing, or you're really getting good at really taking care of yourself, you really start, you understand something. You get that your value, your worth, your worthiness exists. Not because you were productive or you did anything to deserve it. It's just there. And you get to have that, and no one can take it from you. I promise you, at the beginning of this journey, I really